The Drakari artist Jalaxlar was a renowned sculptor, and his latest gallery included lifelike crystal pieces made to look like fellow Dark Eldar with very realistic expressions of horror on their faces. During an attack from a rival house, his laboratories were also raided, and the secret of his artistic talents were discovered and accidentally unleashed. Jalaxlar had created the Glass Plague, which turned living beings into glass statues. But it's particularly terrifying to the Drakari because it kills them permanently. Normally, a Drakari that has been killed can be revived or cloned or brought back by some other means, if they've paid a homunculus in advance, of course. And so having a true death, where they are swallowed up by Slaanesh, is a horrible fate for them. The released plague spreads as an airborne virus, infecting thousands of citizens in the city of Kamara. Only with the intervention of the homunculi coven, known as the Helix, was the outbreak contained and a counter-virus released. Unfortunately for the rest of the galaxy, the Glass Plague failed to inflict any real damage to Kamara and is now counted amongst the most potent viral weapons in the Dark Eldar armory. If it were to be brought to an Imperial world, it is very likely it could wipe out the entire population in a matter of hours, leaving a pristine world ready for pillaging and decorated with beautiful glass statues. Given that the Eldari are such an ancient species, it's no surprise to learn that they have several methods of destroying planets similar to the Imperium, and probably the most artful is the Fireheart. Back before the fall, the Eldari civilization had many of these large tower-like devices. The way they worked is not really well known to outsiders, but what we can say is that these devices were landed on a planet and remotely activated by a powerful psychic trigger, which then sent a pulse of intense psychic energy into the very heart of a world, forcing the core to collapse and the planet itself to break apart as the subsurface layers of magma were forced upwards. These powerful artifacts were, of course, hoarded by the wealthy and powerful, and by the time things started breaking down in Eldari society, they fled with them into the webway, storing them for later use. The problem there is that as they slowly became the Drakari, these depraved lunatics had to stop using their psychic powers and more or less lost the ability to even activate the Firehearts they still had. This means that the only account we have of a Fireheart being used was the result of an unlikely alliance between the Drakari and their Craftworld cousins, who used the device to annihilate a Tyranid swarm on the world of Durio. We can only assume that afterwards the two forces promptly went back to killing each other. The Raptorus Rex is the mighty starfort of the Firehawks chapter and served as their mobile fortress.
Raptorus Rex sounds like a dinosaur.
Monastery. Like the Imperial Fist Phalanx, this massive space station carried enough firepower to challenge a whole naval cruiser squadron, but conventional weapons don't land you a spot on this list. Instead, we are taking a look at the time the Raptorus Rex flung a stellar core fragment at its enemies. And yes, we know that this is sort of cheating, but it's also really cool and definitely qualifies as a super weapon, so stay with us here. For those who don't know, a stellar core fragment is essentially what remains of a collapsed star. It's bigger than most planets, and is one of the most dense objects in the known universe. With the help of the tech priest from Angstrom, the Firehawks were able to drag one of these fragments with them into battle against the successionist forces of Lufthuron during the Badab War. A massive fleet suddenly arrived in the Badab system and attacked the sixth planet. While the defenders were quick to react, they were not quick enough to prevent the stellar core fragment from being hurled at them. In mere moments, the core fragment was flung past the Raptorus Rex and hit the Sentinel Sigma battle station. When the entire battle station turned its guns against the stellar core fragment, they fired with little to no effect. The entire ring of steel protecting the Badab system was crippled, being unable to target the incoming Loyalist armada.
So it's like a giant meteor or comet, right? So they're basically smashing that thing into their enemy. I think you can do that with any big object, so I'm not sure if what is so special with this one.
The space around Badab was filled with atomic detonations, successionist targeting arrays accidentally firing on each other. Only at near point-blank range did the defense lasers and arc cannon of the starforts have any effect on the burning matter, causing the fragments to be rent apart in a great wave of energy which washed over Sentinel Sigma, painting its failing void shields with extreme heat and burning through defense ships and fighters in a torrent of destruction. Hard on the wake of the energy storm came the Angels of Death, as boarding torpedoes and assault rams smashed into the reeling Sentinel Sigma, carrying with them the might of the Sons of Medusa and the Exorcist chapters. Soon, they were locked in combat inside the station's vaults and corridors by battle servitors and the Astral Claws. The biggest takeaway from this battle is that sometimes you do not need an advanced superweapon to win your battles. Sometimes all you need is a big enough rock to throw at your enemies, a tactic that has worked since the dawn of humanity. Most of the galaxy builds superweapons to glass continents or crack planets open like eggs, but the Tau, being the Tau, decided to get fancy with theirs. During their campaign in the Kaurava system, the Tau deployed an experimental long-range weapon on the fortified moon base of Nanyanoi, the Arca Cannon. Developed by the Earthcast and overseen by Commander Oreska, this prototype was meant to change the face of warfare in the region. The Arca wasn't designed for mass destruction the same way other weapons were. Instead, it fired energy pulses tuned to kill only advanced organic life, only deadly to anything with a sophisticated nervous system like humans, Astartes, Eldar, etc. The Arca is able to annihilate the real threat while leaving infrastructure like roads, bridges, bunkers, and supply depots entirely safe. In theory, the Tau could wipe out an entire army in one shot, then march their infantry in to claim the pristine defenses. Even within Kaurava, multiple Arca-class cannons were stationed in orbit to support Nanyanoi's defenses, creating a layered system of surgical extinction. But the experiment ultimately ended in failure. When the Tau foothold on Nanyanoi collapsed, the Arca project died with it, abandoned by Tau Command for being too costly while being unable to actually stop their enemies, who ended up succeeding despite the presence of these incredible weapons. There is one weapon in the entire universe of Warhammer that is so absurdly powerful that even the Necrons, the same ancient empire that tore their own gods apart and wired their bodies into living batteries, refused to use it casually. This is the Celestial Orrery, a mechanism hidden within the Necron crown world of Thanatos. This is considered the single greatest treasure in the galaxy. According to surviving records, it was crafted in the distant ages before the War in Heaven, likely by the artisans of a now forgotten lineage known as the Oriskar dynasty. To the Necrons, it is equal parts weapon and art piece, a hololithic model of the Milky Way, suspended in a lattice of glowing geometry, each star represented by a floating shard of necrodermis, the living metal that makes up all Necron bodies. And here is the horrifying part. Touch one of those stars, just tap the replica, and the real star it represents goes supernova. For real. The orrery can erase entire systems with a nudge. It can destabilize sectors with a careless gesture. But with precise movements, a user can also shift stellar bodies along new courses. To call it a super weapon almost feels childish. It's more like having the backstage controls for cosmic order itself. Yet, the royal court of Thanatos treats it not as a doomsday device, but as a tool for gardening. They prune only when necessary, which makes sense considering the damage this thing could do. Countless factions have fought, schemed over, or outright invaded in hopes of claiming the orrery, but it remains in Necron hands. And one of the most infamous incidents came during Abaddon's assault on Cadia. Trazyn the Infinite arrived on Thanatos, took one look at the disaster unfolding across the stars, and promptly punched the High Astromancer in the face. In his view, the court had failed in their cosmic gardening duties. In their view, a fistfight next to a device that can accidentally end reality was the single most irresponsible thing any Necron had ever done. Well, that was terrifying. Having so many weapons that can cause destruction on planetary scales is nothing new of science fiction.
I think this last one was definitely the most powerful one. Also, I wonder why the Necrons haven't conquered the whole galaxy with this weapon. But I guess they're... how can I say it? They only use it when it is super necessary. And I think that is very responsible of them, very considerate of them.
Settings, but 40k always has to prove it's the most dramatic, and frankly, We didn't even discuss half of the apocalypse makers drifting out there in the grimdark future. Which one was your favorite? What super weapon that we didn't discuss would you like to see next time? Let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, why not take a look at our channel memberships? There's a good range of benefits to choose, from initiates who help us keep the scrolls tidy, to battle brothers who get early access to all our discussions, right up to the noble chapter masters who get their names posted right here at the end of our videos. And if none of those seem right, you can always drop us a like and subscribe to support us for absolutely free. We always need more conscripts to man galaxy-sized operations of more lore.
It was fascinating. I think my favorite weapon was the last one. I think it was the most powerful one of them. And it looked so cool. You could do a lot of very horrifying things with that. So it was very interesting. Check out the original video and give them a like. And if you liked my reaction, please give me a like too. Thanks for watching. See you later.